Hello and welcome to Compass Global Markets Weekly Update. I'm Tony Boyajian. We'll kick off with what's happening in the US. The US 2-year yield curve has risen to a 9-year high. It's flattened the curve, which means that the market is now fully pricing in another interest rate rise in December. Now that's been almost fully priced in, about a 90% chance as we speak. It would make it 3 rate rises in 2017. Now the US bond curve is a proxy for the amount of tightness, if you like, in monetary policy. And given that the Federal Reserve is intent on raising interest rates in a low inflation environment, it's a leading indicator of where US economic growth will be. So this is expected to increase volatility in the markets. Generally when this happens, we see the US dollar appreciate, which is perhaps one of the reasons why the Australian dollar fell 1% overnight, is just barely hanging on to this 76 US cent level as we speak. Now the Fed's most preferred measure of inflation is called the PCE deflator. This number comes out again at the end of this month on the 30th of November. It's already fallen from 1.9% to 1.3%, yet the Federal Reserve is intent on raising interest rates, hence the dilemma. So certainly markets will be keeping an eye on that. There might be a pullback in the factorization of another rate hike if that number on the 30th of November is a low read. There are continuing doubts, or growing doubts if you like, about the US Republicans' tax plan. We saw just over the last weekend that the Senate has released its own plan for tax reform, separate to the House's plan, and this one will impact households differently. It looks like the Senate is intent on keeping 7 tax brackets rather than reducing it to 4. It basically means if the tax bill is enacted, it'll be watered down. It might be phased in over the next 3 to 5 years, and this is creating some uncertainty in terms of US economic direction. We know the high tax states like New York, California and New Jersey will certainly oppose it. They're trying to get the deliberations all resolved in time for Thanksgiving on the 23rd of November, but you heard it first here, it's not going to happen. We believe that the Trump tax plan that's been spoken about will not raise economic growth. It will only add to the US public debt situation, and overnight we saw the US budget deficit, the federal budget deficit, actually widen by almost 38% from September to October. So that is certainly an interesting development there. Look, locally here in Australia, faster wage growth is now critical to Australia's inflation outlook. We've got hourly wages growth in Australia at record lows of around 1.9% per annum, and this is what's keeping the inflation rate subdued, well below that target rate of 2 to 3% that the RBA looks at. Now the next wages growth figure, the September quarter numbers, are out tomorrow. This will be carefully watched to see what sort of indicator it'll give to the market. On the other hand, we've got a lot of political uncertainty now, with Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull's 1-seat majority plunging into jeopardy. It looks like Australia is now governed by a hung parliament until these by-elections take place in December, and this is just certainly adding to the economic uncertainty. As expected, we saw the ECB leave interest rates unchanged last week. Don't forget the Catalonian independence election will also take place next month. It will maintain euro volatility as Spain remains politically divided. And overnight there were more political ramifications in the UK. We saw the hard Brexit talks in the UK re-emerge as political concerns are now dividing the UK Parliament. Apparently 40 MPs have signed a no confidence vote in UK Prime Minister Theresa May. It's seen the sterling pound plummet 1% overnight. Apparently the vote was 8 short of instigating a leadership election. So plenty of food for thought in financial markets. The Aussie dollar remains subdued in all this, as we mentioned. It looks like we'll remain in that 75.5 to 77 cent range over the short term. Don't forget to watch us every Thursday lunchtime on Sky Business News for our weekly market wrap, and tomorrow morning, in particular Wednesday morning, I'll be on Business Breakfast with Leanne Jones on Sky Business News from 8 AM. Have a great week. Tony Boyajian from encompass global markets.